and welcome back to another edition of Skimp versus Splurge. Today we are talking about cosmetics, and we are not going to do brushes in this video. That will be a separate video. But today we're going to talk about what cosmetics you should be spending money on and what cosmetics you can actually be skimping on and going cheap with. So the first products we're going to talk about are the more base products in your makeup. When I am using a foundation primer, I like to splurge. Anything that goes on my skin that is going to make my skin look pretty before my makeup goes on, I like to spend a little bit of extra money on, because generally the products that you're spending more money on are going to make your skin look better. I like this Smashbox Photo Finish Primerizer. It's actually a primer and a moisturizer in one, but because it is a more expensive product, it makes your skin really, really nice, makes your foundation look really, really nice on top of it. So speaking of foundation, let's talk foundation. You guys know I use Estee Lauder Double Wear. I've used this actually for a long, long time. It's my favorite foundation. I discovered it, I've used a bunch since, and I've never changed my mind. I've used lots of other expensive ones, lots of other cheap ones, and I have to say that spending money on your foundation really does make a difference. Sometimes when you find a really nice, more inexpensive foundation, it'll look good right when you apply it, but it'll break down faster throughout the day, your oils will kind of come through it, cracks will start to form. It doesn't hold up as well as a more expensive foundation. So I am just more of a fan on splurging on foundations. So along with the foundation splurge is another splurge. I promise there's just as many saves or skimps as splurges are in this video. It's just, for me, generally, my base products I like to spend money on, because the more expensive products are going to give you nicer skin, and if your skin looks good, then everything else you can kind of skimp on. So this is a under eye concealer. This is by Anastasia Beverly Hills, and this is just their normal concealer in a 0.5. It's very, very, very light. This concealer, just a tiny, tiny bit goes a long way. It's actually in like potted formula, and I use a brush to apply this, and I really don't use that much. I find sometimes with the more expensive concealer, I use so much of it to try to get pigment out of it, and it's just not as pigmented as the expensive stuff. I also find that the expensive stuff sets better. I don't get as much creasing, and it just lasts longer. So I would say splurge on your concealers. So after concealer, we're gonna talk about our first save. Dun, 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 dun. This is Instamatte by Rimmel, and this is actually a setting powder. So this is a translucent setting powder. Dun, 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 dun. Most of the time with translucent powders, you can get away with skimping. It's really not that big of a deal, as long as you're not wearing crazy, crazy, crazy heavy foundation that needs to be set really, really well. Most of the time, a cheapy translucent powder works. I also like to use NYX setting powder that's like a loose powder. That's great. Just make sure that whatever powder you are using is not reflective. So I'm going to talk bronzer and blush at the same time, because it's actually in the same palette. So this is technically a blush palette by e.l.f., but this is another thing that you can skimp on, which is your bronzers and your blushes. Unless you're going for something really trendy or really high fashion where you're using lots of blush and lots of bronzer, for most of us that are using light levels of blush and bronzer, there is plenty of pigment in the cheapy ones to look totally fine on your face. And again, if you're using all the nice base products, your skin's gonna look really good, so this on top of it is just gonna look fine. But along with that is your highlighter, and I do actually like to spend money on highlighter and not skimp on highlighter. Most of the reason for that is I find in the cheaper highlighters, there's lots of shimmer and sparkle. I like my highlighter just to give my skin a nice sort of sheen. I don't like to look glittery, and a lot of the cheaper highlighters are so glittery. They're like unicorn highlighters. I don't know what's going on with those suckers. But I like to use High Beam. This is just a nice liquid highlighter, and even when I use a powder highlighter, I just like a nice sort of subtle highlight instead of crazy glitter face. All right, let's talk eyeshadow primer. I like to splurge on my eyeshadow primer. I've tried all levels of eyeshadow primers. I find that the more expensive ones just work better. Especially this is Soft Ochre Paint Pot by MAC, and this is actually a waterproof product, so it will waterproof your eyeshadow. And I find that the cheaper waterproof eyeshadow primers just don't work as well. In general, I just find they don't hold on to the shadow as well. They don't look as good as long as the more expensive primers do. But the good thing is that if you're using an expensive primer, you can really get away with using a cheap eyeshadow. I haven't even taken this out of the packaging yet, but this is an e.l.f. eyeshadow palette. This is very inexpensive, and in general you can get away with using more inexpensive eyeshadows. Like I said, just make sure that your primer is a better primer, and then the eyeshadow pigment, even when they're cheap, will come out so much better. So unless you are going for like super glittery, super fashiony, really, really dark pigmented, if you're going for like dark, dark, dark blue or something crazy like that, you can really get away with more inexpensive eyeshadows for everyday makeup. So for eyebrow products, I say skimp. This is just an e.l.f. brow pencil. I feel that one brow pencil is the same as every other brow pencil. The thinner the pencil is, the better, obviously, but it's kind of all the same formula, especially if you are like me and you actually do have eyebrows and you're just using this as kind of fill in the blanks and make them a little bit thicker. It doesn't really matter what brow products you're using. Eyeliner. I definitely like to splurge on my eyeliner. I find that the cheaper eyeliners, they'll be dark and pigmented, but sometimes the applicators aren't so good, or sometimes the formula is not so good where throughout the day it starts to sort of flake and crack and you can't get that like nice perfect wing that stays all day. The more expensive eyeliners are just better formulas. They're gonna last longer, they're gonna stay on your eyes longer, and you're gonna find better waterproof formulas also with the more expensive eyeliners. Mascara. Here's another skimp. Yay! So I find, again, one mascara is the same as all mascaras to me, in my opinion. I definitely have my favorites in the more expensive brands, but I get a lot of mascara for free. So if I wasn't getting a lot of free mascara, I would definitely be skimping on my mascara. This is Rimmel. I actually do use a lot of Rimmel. I use Rimmel a lot in my makeup kit when I'm doing makeup on other people. And especially if you are wearing fake eyelashes, you do not need to be using expensive mascara because you're just covering your lashes up anyways. Speaking of eyelashes, here's another skimp. Yay! These are just Ardell lashes. I think they're like $3 or $4 a piece at the grocery store or at a drugstore. You don't have to go expensive with eyelashes. The eyelashes that I use in my kit when I do makeup on other people are like $14 for a pack of 70 of them. I get them on Amazon. I've never really been a fan of using crazy expensive eyelashes. I know these days the trend is like the mink eyelashes and all these things. I am not trying to spend $70 on one pair of eyelashes that I'm gonna get like 5 or 6 uses out of. So definitely go cheap with your lashes. Just find a brand that you really like or a type that you really like and just stay loyal. Okay, let's talk lip liner. I like to splurge on my lip liner. The reason is because I like a lip liner that has tons of pigment. I want it to stay a long time and I want it to last. And sometimes with the more inexpensive lip liners, either they're really, really drying or they're just not strong enough. They're not gonna hold that lipstick on. So for me, the first line of attack in keeping my lipstick on is a good lip liner. And with that comes a cheap lipstick. So if you have a good lip liner, you can kind of cheap out on your lipstick and it's not that big of a deal. These days, so many inexpensive brands. Oh, this is an Urban Decay lip liner. This is actually Gwen Stefani's line, which has since been discontinued, but generally I like to use more expensive lip liners. This is a Rimmel lipstick. Even in the cheapy brands, e.l.f. makes an awesome lipstick pencil. You can get really inexpensive lipsticks that have really good pigment these days. So I feel like unless you're going really, really dark, like if you're going like a dark berry or a dark brown or a black, you definitely want to make sure those are more expensive because they're going to have better pigment to them. But anything that's lighter than that, in the reds and the pinks, whatever, you can go cheap. One thing I would not skimp on is your liquid lipstick. I have tried almost every liquid lipstick known to man. There are lots of fails in that world, but there's also lots of wins. Kat Von D is one of my favorite wins. Actually, I have this one right here too because I was just using it. This is Stila. This is another liquid lipstick that is a win. I have never found a liquid lipstick that is an inexpensive brand that I think is awesome, especially stacked up to these ones. For me, the more inexpensive they are, the thicker, the clumpier, the chunkier, the more they peel and crack and all of that. Whereas the more expensive ones, especially the Kat Von D and the Black Moon Cosmetics, you can see I'm actually surrounded by makeup right now. These ones are much lighter formulas, so they coat less of your lip. They don't feel so heavy and chunky. This is actually what I'm wearing right now, is this Black Moon Cosmetics liquid lipstick in Harvest. This is one of their fall colors that they just put out. So definitely splurge on your liquid lipsticks. And the last thing I have is kind of a skimp and save. It's kind of an in-between price-wise. This is your foundation setter or your makeup setting spray. This is by Pixie. You can get this at Target. This one particularly is $15. So I don't think you have to spend $80 on makeup setting sprays, but I also don't think you should spend like $2. The e.l.f. setting sprays, not so good. So you can go somewhere in between with your makeup setting sprays as long as it's right for your skin. And that's why I like this one, because it's actually a glow mist. So it adds a little bit of glow and moisture on top of your foundation. So hopefully you guys found this useful. Hopefully I save you a little bit of money here, and maybe save your skin too if you're kind of cheaping out on products that maybe you should be spending a little bit more money on. And hopefully I showed you guys some new products today that you didn't even know about. So let me know if you guys want to see more skimp versus splurge videos. I would be happy to do them. I am going to do one on brushes and hair products, I think, are the next 2 that I have coming up. But if there are other things you guys want to see, definitely let me know. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much for watching my video. Be sure to check out these other videos that I have posted to see more of my wackiness. And if you want to see even more of my wackiness, be sure to subscribe for all things that are vintage and retro and general silliness.